The air changes first. Before the mosquitoes become visible, before the first high whine drifts past an ear, or the first landing touches exposed skin, the environment itself begins to tighten around the body. Humidity hangs low over the ground like warm breath trapped beneath the trees, and every movement through it leaves behind a drifting trail of heat, moisture, and carbon dioxide. A person stepping into this atmosphere does not enter quietly. The human body immediately becomes a moving chemical beacon, broadcasting signals that countless tiny predators have evolved to detect with astonishing precision. Sweat gathers at the neck and forearms, body heat rises from fabric and exposed skin, and with every exhale, a plume of carbon dioxide expands outward into the still evening air. For mosquitoes resting in nearby vegetation or hovering invisibly above stagnant water, these signals do not suggest danger. They suggest opportunity. At first, the encounter feels manageable. A single mosquito circles cautiously, adjusting its position through rapid wing beats that blur faster than the human eye can comfortably follow. Then another appears, and another behind it. The swarm does not arrive as a coordinated army, but as an escalating convergence of independent hunters, all responding to the same biological information. In wetlands, tropical forests, floodplains, and even suburban gardens after rain, mosquitoes occupy nearly every layer of the environment. Some rest beneath leaves during the hottest hours of the day to avoid dehydration, while others emerge specifically during twilight, when dropping temperatures and calmer winds allow delicate flyers to move efficiently through the air. The person standing within this humid corridor becomes the center of overlapping sensory pathways. What feels like sudden attack is, from the mosquito's perspective, the successful completion of a highly specialized search process refined over millions of years. Female mosquitoes, the individuals responsible for biting, are not feeding on blood out of aggression. Blood is a concentrated package of proteins and iron necessary for egg production, and without it many species cannot reproduce successfully. Males survive entirely on nectar and plant sugars, drifting harmlessly through the same environment. The swarm gathering around exposed skin is therefore not random irritation, but an intense reproductive strategy unfolding in real time. Some mosquito species can detect carbon dioxide from remarkable distances, using specialized sensory organs on their antennae and mouthparts to track subtle changes in air composition. Once closer to the target, they begin layering additional information onto the search. Body heat reveals areas where blood vessels run nearest the skin. Sweat carries lactic acid and ammonia, compounds that many mosquito species recognize instantly. Even skin bacteria influence attraction, meaning different humans generate slightly different chemical profiles that mosquitoes respond to with measurable preference. As the swarm thickens, human behavior changes almost immediately. Posture shifts. Hands rise instinctively toward the neck and face. Movement becomes sharper, less efficient, interrupted by repeated swatting motions that rarely connect with their targets. Mosquitoes exploit this imbalance beautifully. Their bodies are extraordinarily lightweight, allowing them to evade sudden air displacement with abrupt directional changes. A human hand cutting through the air creates turbulence that the insects often sense before contact occurs. Many species approach from behind or below, landing silently on ankles, elbows, or the backs of knees where detection is delayed by seconds that matter enormously to such a small animal. The bite itself is equally refined. Rather than driving a simple needle into the skin, the mosquito uses a complex bundle of microscopic feeding structures capable of piercing tissue while searching for blood vessels beneath the surface. Saliva containing anticoagulants and mild anesthetic compounds enters first, preventing clotting and reducing immediate detection. In northern ecosystems during peak breeding seasons, swarms can become so dense that they reshape the behavior of animals far larger than themselves. Caribou crossing Arctic tundra often bunch together in frantic formations, sacrificing feeding opportunities to escape relentless clouds of biting insects. Birds alter nesting patterns. Mammals retreat toward windy ridges or colder elevations where mosquito flight becomes difficult. Even humans working in swamp forests or wetlands unconsciously reorganize their movement through space, choosing routes based less on terrain and more on insect density. The mosquito swarm is tiny in individual scale, yet enormous in ecological influence. These insects transfer energy between ecosystems, serve as prey for fish, bats, dragonflies, and amphibians, and in some environments emerge in such numbers that entire food webs pulse around their seasonal abundance. Yet despite their ecological importance, the immediate encounter remains deeply physical. Standing motionless becomes impossible. Heat intensifies the problem because mosquitoes are most active when warm temperatures accelerate their metabolism and flight capability. Moisture prevents sweat from evaporating efficiently, trapping even more heat against the body and amplifying the chemical signals pouring into the air. The person inside the swarm becomes increasingly aware of their own biology. Breathing feels louder. Skin feels exposed in places previously ignored. Attention narrows toward every tiny sensation. The faint touch of legs against the wrist, the sudden sting at the ankle, the maddening uncertainty of whether the next landing has already occurred unnoticed. What makes the encounter so universal is not merely the discomfort, but the imbalance it reveals. Humans dominate landscapes through size, technology, and intelligence. Yet in humid dusk air beside still water, control can disappear beneath the attention of creatures weighing less than a raindrop. A mosquito swarm does not overpower through strength. It overwhelms through persistence, sensory precision, and sheer ecological timing. The environment itself becomes an extension of the swarm's strategy, turning warmth, breath, and exposed skin into vulnerabilities broadcast continuously into the darkening air. The first bee rarely causes concern. It moves with purpose but without urgency, weaving carefully through warm summer air as though tracing invisible paths between flowers, fruit, and sunlight. Meadows, orchards, and gardens are full of such movement during the height of the growing season. Honeybees travel constantly between blossoms, carrying grains of pollen in dense yellow clusters attached to specialized hairs on their hind legs, while gathering nectar that will eventually be transformed into honey deep inside the hive. Most encounters between humans and bees remain peaceful because the individual forager has little interest in conflict. Every minute away from the colony carries energetic cost, and a bee searching for nectar is part of a larger logistical operation focused entirely on sustaining thousands of other insects hidden somewhere beyond the visible landscape. Yet the atmosphere changes quickly when scent, food, or disturbance begins drawing many bees into the same space at once. The encounter stops feeling incidental. The air becomes occupied. Near outdoor tables, fallen fruit, flowering shrubs, or open drink containers, bees begin arriving from multiple directions almost simultaneously. To the human observer, it can seem strangely sudden, as though the insects appeared from nowhere. But the concentration forms through a sophisticated network of chemical communication and spatial memory operating continuously across the environment. Honeybees are extraordinary navigators. A successful forager returning to the colony performs movements known as waggle dances upon the honeycomb surface, encoding direction, distance, and resource quality through vibration and motion. The colony interprets this information collectively, dispatching more workers toward profitable feeding sites with remarkable efficiency. A spilled sweet drink on a humid afternoon may therefore become more than an isolated curiosity. It becomes a mapped resource entering the awareness of an entire superorganism. The term superorganism is not metaphorical exaggeration. A honeybee colony functions less like a gathering of individuals and more like a distributed biological body composed of thousands of specialized parts. Workers regulate hive temperature by vibrating flight muscles to generate warmth during cool weather, or by fanning their wings to circulate air when heat rises dangerously high. Some collect water specifically for evaporative cooling, spreading droplets within the hive so airflow lowers internal temperature, much like perspiration cools mammalian skin. Others remain permanently assigned to nursing larvae, processing nectar, guarding entrances, or removing waste. No single bee comprehends the whole system, yet together they maintain an environment precise enough for developing brood to survive within extremely narrow thermal limits. A colony losing temperature control can collapse rapidly, so defensive behavior around the hive is not emotional aggression, but protection of a delicately regulated living structure. That structure becomes alarmingly apparent when a nesting area is disturbed. The warning does not begin with stinging, it begins with sound. The soft, drifting hum associated with feeding bees deepens into something denser and more directional as guard bees accelerate into defensive flight. Vibrations ripple outward from the nest entrance while alarm pheromones spread through the air. One crushed bee or defensive sting releases chemical signals that instantly alter the behavior of nearby workers, focusing their attention toward movement, dark surfaces, mammalian breath, and rapid motion. A person standing too close to the colony can feel the transition physically before understanding it intellectually. Bees no longer move flower to flower with wandering calm. They begin circling tightly around the head and shoulders, tracking carbon dioxide from exhaled breath and targeting areas most associated with potential predators such as bears, badgers, or other hive-raiding mammals. The psychological shift during such encounters is profound because bees challenge assumptions about scale and dominance. Individually, a honeybee appears fragile. Its body is covered in branched hairs dusted with pollen, its wings nearly transparent against sunlight, its entire mass light enough to rest upon a flower petal without bending it significantly. Yet dozens moving together create a field of attention around the human body that feels impossible to ignore. The air vibrates constantly. Peripheral vision fills with motion. Instinct forces the body to slow down, lower its posture, and reconsider every movement. Rapid gestures increase defensive responses because sudden motion resembles the behavior of animals attacking or disturbing the hive. Ironically, stillness often reduces escalation, though remaining calm while surrounded by highly alert insects demands enormous restraint from creatures far larger than the bees themselves. Within natural ecosystems, this defensive intensity protects one of the most ecologically important relationships on Earth. Honeybees and flowering plants exist within a mutual dependence refined across evolutionary time. As bees gather nectar and pollen for the colony, they transfer reproductive material between blossoms, enabling seed and fruit production across entire landscapes. Orchards, wildflowers, agricultural crops, and forest understories all pulse with this exchange. Predator species exploit it as well. Crab spiders hide among petals waiting for pollinators to land. Bee-eater birds intercept workers returning to the hive heavy with nectar. Dragonflies patrol feeding corridors above wetlands and flowering fields. Every bee crossing the landscape participates in a wider network of energy transfer involving predators, plants, microbes, fungi, and climate itself. Yet standing amid a sudden concentration of bees beside overripe fruit or near an unseen hive entrance, those larger ecological processes become secondary to immediate sensation. The sound thickens around the ears. The smell of nectar and fermenting sugar hangs in warm air, while sunlight flashes across hundreds of moving wings. The human body, so dominant in most environments, begins responding cautiously to animals small enough to crawl beneath a thumbnail. Not because the bees possess overwhelming strength individually, but because colony life transforms thousands of delicate insects into a coordinated biological force capable of defending itself with astonishing precision and collective resolve. By late summer, the atmosphere around human food begins to change. Orchards soften with overripe fruit, outdoor markets smell faintly of fermenting sugar, and picnic tables accumulate invisible trails of sweetness from spilled juice, cut melon, and open soda cans warming beneath the sun. Insects move constantly through this chemical landscape, but few alter human behavior as quickly or as dramatically as wasps. The first arrival often appears almost mechanical in its precision. A yellow and black body drifts beneath the edge of a table, wings vibrating in rapid bursts as it hovers motionless beside exposed food. Unlike the wandering unpredictability of flies or the pollen-focused purpose of bees, a wasp seems intensely attentive. Its movements are direct, deliberate, and uncomfortably observant, as though every scent molecule and twitch of motion is being evaluated simultaneously. A calm gathering can begin unraveling within minutes, because wasps are not simply opportunistic scavengers. They are predators, hunters, nest defenders, and highly responsive social insects capable of escalating encounters with remarkable speed. The environment surrounding a picnic or trash area is particularly attractive to many social wasp species because it mirrors the nutritional diversity they exploit in natural ecosystems. Adult wasps feed primarily on sugars for energy, seeking nectar, ripe fruit, tree sap, and any concentrated source of carbohydrates they can locate. Their larvae, however, require protein for development, which means worker wasps spend much of their lives hunting other insects. Caterpillars, flies, spiders, and even pieces of carrion are chewed into digestible pulp and delivered back to the nest. This dual feeding strategy makes human spaces extraordinarily valuable late in the season when natural food sources become less reliable. Sweet drinks provide immediate fuel, while discarded meat and protein-rich scraps can support developing brood. A crowded outdoor meal therefore becomes an accidental extension of the wasp's ecological territory. As more workers discover the resource, the psychological pressure on nearby humans intensifies. One wasp circling a plate creates irritation. Several moving unpredictably around faces, hands, and uncovered food create something deeper: uncertainty. Human attention begins fragmenting. Conversations shorten. Eyes track movement continuously across peripheral vision. Every sip from a drink container becomes cautious because wasps frequently crawl inside openings where sugar concentration is strongest. Unlike honeybees, which usually sting only when forced into defense, many social wasps possess smooth stingers that allow repeated attacks without fatal injury to themselves. This biological difference matters enormously during encounters. The wasp does not function as a single-use defender sacrificing itself for the colony. It remains fully capable of stinging again and again while continuing to pursue the perceived threat. That threat assessment can shift suddenly through alarm pheromones released during disturbance. A hand striking at a wasp, a footstep near a concealed nest entrance, or vibrations against the structure supporting a colony can transform scattered foraging behavior into coordinated aggression within seconds. Beneath roof eaves, inside wall cavities, underground burrows, and hanging from tree branches, wasp nests operate as densely populated biological fortresses built from paper-like material created by chewing weathered wood fibers into pulp. Inside these layered chambers, larvae develop within tightly packed hexagonal cells, while workers maintain constant ventilation and structural repair. The colony depends entirely on collective defense because, unlike bees, most wasp nests store relatively little long-term food. Their survival relies on active labor and continuous brood production throughout the warm season. When the nest itself becomes threatened, the encounter changes character completely. Wasps launch outward not as a drifting cloud, but as a rapid expansion of highly reactive insects, orienting immediately toward movement, heat, and exhaled breath. The sound alone alters human behavior. The deepening buzz around the head carries an unmistakable urgency, because the insects fly with sharp directional confidence rather than hesitant exploration. Some species can pursue intruders over surprising distances, maintaining attack behavior far beyond the immediate nest boundary. This persistence evolved against predators capable of devastating entire colonies in moments. Mammals digging into nests for larvae or honeydew-rich secretions forced wasps into developing rapid collective retaliation as a survival necessity. Yet even away from nests, wasps dominate psychological space through unpredictability. Their hunting instincts create behaviors that feel almost confrontational from a human perspective. They inspect exposed skin for moisture and salt. They land abruptly on food, tearing away fragments with strong mandibles designed originally for prey capture and nest construction. In orchards and vineyards, certain species feed on fruit already damaged by birds or weather, accelerating fermentation and filling the air with the dense scent of sugar and yeast. Dragonflies intercept them in flight above fields. Spiders capture them at flower edges despite the risk of venomous retaliation. Birds such as bee-eaters and shrikes specialize in handling stinging insects with careful precision, striking them repeatedly against branches before consumption. Even wasps exist within a broader network of predation and vulnerability. Still, in human environments, their confidence creates an encounter few people forget. A once peaceful table slowly empties as plates are abandoned and drinks covered with nervous hands. Movement becomes defensive and awkward because every instinct encourages retreat, while sudden motion risks escalation. The irony is striking. Humans capable of reshaping landscapes with machinery and architecture can find themselves surrendering territory to insects small enough to disappear beneath a folded napkin. But wasps succeed not through size. They succeed through coordination, sensory efficiency, and the ability to recruit reinforcements rapidly into spaces rich with food and scent. As summer edges toward autumn, this behavior often intensifies. Colonies reach peak population size, while natural sugars become increasingly valuable. Workers grow bolder, more persistent, and less selective. The encounter no longer feels like coexistence with wildlife at the edge of civilization. It feels like entering a contested feeding ground where the balance of control can shift unexpectedly in favor of the swarm. At first glance, the movement appears almost decorative. Along the edge of a rainforest trail or across the border of a garden clearing, fragments of green drift steadily through the undergrowth, as though the vegetation itself has detached and begun migrating across the soil. Only after looking closer does the structure reveal itself. Beneath every moving leaf segment is a leafcutter ant, marching in precise alignment through narrow chemical highways worn invisibly into the landscape. Thousands more follow behind them in uninterrupted streams that bend around roots, stones, puddles, and fallen branches with astonishing continuity. The scene carries none of the frantic unpredictability associated with swarming wasps or biting mosquitoes. Instead, the encounter produces a different kind of psychological effect. A human standing near the trail begins to understand that the insects are not wandering individually through the environment. They are operating as a coordinated biological current flowing through the forest with the efficiency of circulating blood through living tissue. The scale of organization becomes clearer with time. A single trail may stretch for remarkable distances between feeding sites and underground chambers hidden beneath the forest floor. Workers move in opposing lanes with surprisingly little collision despite the density of traffic. Outbound ants travel lightly across the ground, antennae sweeping continuously against scent markers laid down by nestmates. Returning workers carry curved pieces of leaves many times larger than their own bodies, creating the illusion of moving foliage gliding low above the earth. The burden appears enormous from a human perspective, yet the ants maintain steady pace even across uneven terrain. Their bodies are built for leverage and endurance, with powerful mandibles capable of slicing through fresh vegetation in rapid crescent-shaped cuts. Muscles concentrated within the head generate extraordinary force relative to body size, allowing workers to process plant material with mechanical precision. Yet the leaves themselves are not the colony's true food source. This is where the encounter begins, revealing one of the most sophisticated agricultural systems in the natural world. Leafcutter ants do not consume the vegetation they harvest directly. Instead, the fragments are transported deep underground and chewed into pulp used to cultivate specialized fungal gardens. The fungus breaks down plant material into digestible nutrients that feed the colony, while the ants protect, fertilize, and propagate the fungal crop with extraordinary care. In evolutionary terms, this relationship represents a form of agriculture that emerged millions of years before human farming existed. Entire colonies survive through this partnership, maintaining controlled subterranean environments where humidity, temperature, and contamination must remain carefully regulated. Inside the nest, the organization becomes even more intricate. Vast chambers branch downward through the soil, some reaching depths that stabilize internal climate against tropical heat and seasonal dryness. Different castes perform distinct roles within this underground city. Tiny worker ants groom fungal surfaces constantly, removing spores and harmful microbes before infections spread. Larger workers transport leaf fragments and excavate tunnels. Massive soldier ants patrol entrances with oversized jaws capable of defending against predators, ranging from spiders to invading ant species. The colony functions through distributed intelligence rather than centralized command. No single ant understands the architecture of the nest or the strategy of the whole system, yet through pheromone communication and behavioral feedback, millions of coordinated actions create stability across an enormous living network. For a human observer, the overwhelming quality of the encounter comes from witnessing how completely the ants reshape their environment through cooperation alone. Forest vegetation bears visible signs of their activity. Entire saplings can be stripped overnight by coordinated harvesting teams moving through the canopy. Trails remain active through rainstorms, heat, and darkness because the colony operates continuously. During tropical downpours, workers adjust movement patterns to maintain traffic flow while underground chambers rely on sophisticated ventilation structures, preventing suffocation and fungal collapse. Some entrances are opened or sealed depending on moisture levels and air circulation needs, creating passive climate control systems driven entirely through collective labor. Predators constantly exploit this activity. Armadillos dig into nests searching for protein-rich larvae. Antbirds follow the trails waiting for insects disturbed by the marching workers. Tiny parasitic flies hover above foraging lines, attempting to lay eggs on the ants themselves. In response, some smaller workers ride atop leaf fragments carried by larger nestmates, acting as living guards against aerial parasites. What appears from afar to be a decorative procession of moving leaves is in reality a highly defended transport system, navigating constant ecological pressure. The human body feels strangely clumsy near such organization. A boot placed carelessly across the trail creates temporary disruption, but the flow reforms rapidly around the obstacle. Ants climb over one another, establish alternate pathways, and reconnect the chemical network within minutes. The stream bends but does not stop. That resilience changes the emotional texture of the encounter. Unlike defensive swarms that force retreat through pain or threat, leafcutter ants generate awe through persistence. Their power comes from continuity rather than aggression. The colony absorbs disruption because no individual worker is essential on its own. The system survives through redundancy, communication, and overwhelming numerical coordination. In tropical ecosystems, colonies can persist for decades, processing immense quantities of vegetation and reshaping nutrient cycles across entire landscapes. Soil aeration improves through tunneling activity. Fungal cultivation redistributes organic matter beneath the forest floor. Competing plant species experience selective pressure depending on harvesting preference. Even microorganisms inside the nest participate in symbiotic relationships with certain bacteria living upon the ants' bodies, producing antibiotic compounds that protect fungal gardens from disease. The colony exists not as a simple insect society, but as a layered biological partnership involving plants, fungi, microbes, predators, and climate operating together through evolutionary interdependence. Standing beside a living river of ants carrying pieces of the forest above their heads, the illusion of individual importance begins to fade. The insects do not acknowledge the human presence unless the trail itself is disturbed significantly. They continue forward with mechanical calm, flowing around obstacles, vanishing beneath roots, and emerging again farther ahead. The encounter leaves a peculiar impression of scale reversed. The human may tower physically above the colony, yet the ants possess something far larger than size alone. A level of collective organization capable of transforming entire ecosystems through relentless coordinated movement. The wall appears stained at first. Beneath the warmth of afternoon sunlight, scattered patches of black and crimson gather across stone foundations, tree trunks, and the lower edges of weathered buildings until the surface itself seems alive with shifting color. From a distance, the movement is subtle enough to be mistaken for fallen petals or fragments of bark caught against the masonry. Only when approaching closer does the pattern resolve into hundreds of individual insects pressed together in dense living clusters. Firebugs cover the ground in concentrated masses, their bodies overlapping in restless layers of red and black geometry that pulse slowly as insects crawl over one another, searching for warmth, shelter, or mating space. Individually, they are harmless, lacking venom, stingers, or aggressive defensive behavior. Yet their sheer numbers alter the emotional tone of the encounter immediately. A single insect draws curiosity. Hundreds occupying the same surface create the unsettling impression that the environment itself has been overtaken. This reaction emerges partly from visual psychology and partly from the ecological logic driving the insects together. Firebugs thrive in temperate regions where seasonal temperature fluctuations shape daily survival. During cool mornings or transitional months, exposed stone walls, pavement edges, and sunlit foundations act as thermal reservoirs, absorbing solar radiation and releasing heat slowly back into the surrounding air. For small-bodied insects, temperature is not merely comfort, but a governing force controlling movement speed, digestion, circulation, and reproductive capability. Firebugs are ectothermic, relying entirely on external conditions to regulate body function. Clustering allows them to exploit retained warmth collectively, reducing heat loss while concentrating activity around microhabitats capable of supporting survival through colder periods. The effect becomes especially striking in early spring or autumn, when entire congregations emerge from cracks beneath bark, gaps in stonework, or leaf litter accumulated along sheltered walls. Sunlight ignites the vivid coloration across their backs, creating the appearance of moving embers scattered against pale surfaces. Their patterns are not accidental decoration. The contrasting red and black coloration functions as aposematic signaling, a visual warning common among many insects that advertise unpleasant taste or chemical defenses to predators. Firebugs feed primarily on fallen seeds, particularly those from lime trees and mallows, and accumulate compounds that make them unappealing to many birds and small predators. The warning pattern allows survival through recognition rather than concealment. In a strange way, their clustering amplifies the signal further. A predator encountering one firebug might hesitate briefly. Encountering hundreds reinforces the message across an entire visual field. Yet predators still test the system constantly. Spiders wait near aggregation sites where movement remains dense and predictable. Ground beetles patrol beneath leaf litter searching for weakened individuals. Birds occasionally sample them despite the chemical deterrents, sometimes discarding the insects immediately after capture. The firebugs persist because their strategy depends less on avoiding detection than on surviving it collectively. Dense clustering dilutes individual risk while improving opportunities for reproduction and thermoregulation. Within these gatherings, mating pairs remain connected for extended periods, often crawling awkwardly backward while joined abdomen to abdomen. To human observers, the scene can appear strangely chaotic, but the aggregation represents a carefully balanced response to environmental pressure involving heat management, seasonal timing, and reproductive coordination. The emotional intensity of the encounter comes largely from scale distortion. Human perception evolved to recognize mass movement as biologically important. A few insects scattered across a wall register as background detail. Thousands moving together trigger a deeper awareness because the collective mass begins behaving visually like a single organism. The ground seems to ripple. Cracks in stone appear to breathe with motion. Even though firebugs move relatively slowly compared to ants or wasps, their synchronized density creates a persistent sense of occupation. Spaces associated with human order and stability become temporarily claimed by insect presence alone. In urban environments, this effect becomes particularly noticeable because firebugs exploit the unintended warmth created by human structures. Stone walls, sidewalks, fences, and building foundations trap solar heat far more effectively than surrounding vegetation. The insects gather along these artificial thermal corridors with remarkable predictability. A person walking through an otherwise quiet courtyard may suddenly encounter entire sections of pavement carpeted in moving red and black bodies, concentrated tightly against a sunlit edge. The insects do not scatter dramatically when approached. Instead, they continue their slow collective movement with calm indifference, forcing the human observer to navigate around them rather than through them. The psychological reversal is subtle but powerful. Control over the space begins to feel shared. Beneath the visual spectacle lies a quieter ecological role, often overlooked precisely because the clustering behavior dominates attention. Firebugs participate in decomposition and nutrient cycling by feeding on fallen plant material, especially seeds already abandoned by trees. Their activity helps redistribute organic matter across soil surfaces while supporting predators adapted to exploit seasonal insect abundance. They are woven into urban parks, forest margins, gardens, and roadside ecosystems as persistent recyclers operating mostly unnoticed until population density suddenly makes them impossible to ignore. The irony of the encounter is that nothing about the insects individually appears threatening. Their bodies are soft compared to armored beetles, their feeding behavior non-aggressive, and their movement almost leisurely. Yet multiplication transforms harmlessness into spectacle. The human mind struggles to interpret sheer abundance without assigning greater significance to it. A wall occupied by thousands of insects feels fundamentally different from one occupied by one. Firebugs exploit no conscious fear response through attack or venom. Instead, they reveal how strongly perception changes when life accumulates visibly in concentrated form. As sunlight fades and evening cools the stone, the clusters begin retreating slowly into narrow shelters where retained warmth lingers longest. The moving carpet contracts into cracks and crevices until the wall gradually resembles ordinary architecture once again, but the impression remains. For a brief period, the boundary between built human space and insect territory dissolved beneath the power of numbers alone, demonstrating how even the gentlest species can dominate attention simply by appearing everywhere at once. The first shieldbug often appears alone against glass, motionless enough to resemble a small fragment of bark pressed accidentally onto the window by wind. Its body forms a compact armored shape, broad across the back and narrowing toward the head like a tiny medieval shield sculpted from polished leaf matter. Sunlight catches faint greens, bronzes, or mottled browns across the surface depending on species and season, allowing the insect to blend naturally among foliage during the warmer months. On a single window pane, the encounter feels minor, almost decorative. Yet autumn changes the relationship between shieldbugs and human structures entirely. As temperatures begin falling and daylight shortens, isolated sightings transform into concentrated gatherings spread across walls, door frames, attic vents, and sheltered exterior surfaces, until the building itself seems quietly occupied by patient, unmoving life. The transition happens gradually enough that humans often notice it only after numbers have already accumulated. A few insects appear beneath the roofline one afternoon. By the following week, dozens cling motionless to sunlit siding, tucked into corners where stone, wood, and metal absorb and retain warmth. The concentration creates an atmosphere strangely different from aggressive swarms like wasps or mosquitoes. Shieldbugs do not rush through the air or actively confront intruders. Their takeover is silent, deliberate, and persistent. They simply remain. Every surface offering heat stability and protection begins attracting more individuals responding to the same environmental cues. Warmth radiates slowly from walls exposed to afternoon sunlight, while narrow cracks around windows and roof tiles promise shelter against approaching cold. To the insects, the building represents a massive artificial cliff face filled with ideal overwintering sites. To the human observer, the collective stillness of so many insects attached to domestic surfaces creates an unnerving impression that the architecture itself has become biologically inhabited. This behavior is deeply tied to seasonal survival strategies. Many shieldbug species enter a dormant or semi-dormant state during colder months, slowing metabolism dramatically to conserve energy until spring returns. Achieving stable overwintering conditions is critical, because freezing temperatures can rupture cells and disrupt vital biological processes. Unlike mammals, insects cannot generate internal heat independently through sustained metabolism. Instead, they rely on environmental buffering, anti-freeze-like compounds within their tissues, and carefully selected shelters that reduce thermal extremes. Human structures unintentionally provide precisely these conditions. Walls store solar warmth long after sunset. Roof spaces remain drier and more insulated than exposed vegetation. Small gaps protect against wind, predators, and sudden temperature swings. The aggregation itself offers additional survival advantages. Clustering insects experience reduced heat loss and lower desiccation risk because neighboring bodies slightly stabilize local humidity and temperature. Some shieldbug species even release chemical signals encouraging others to gather in suitable overwintering sites. What humans interpret as invasion is therefore a collective thermoregulation strategy, unfolding across the surfaces of houses, sheds, barns, and urban buildings every autumn. The insects remain highly aware despite their apparent stillness. Compound eyes monitor changing light conditions, while antennae sample airborne chemical information continuously. Disturbance triggers subtle movement rippling through nearby individuals as legs reposition against stone or glass. If handled or threatened, shieldbugs release defensive chemicals from specialized scent glands beneath the thorax. The odor varies between species, but often carries sharp herbal, bitter, or coriander-like notes strong enough to discourage birds, lizards, and small mammals from predation. The defense is remarkably effective because the insects themselves possess little physical protection beyond their hardened exoskeletons. They cannot sting, bite meaningfully, or escape quickly. Survival depends instead on camouflage, chemical deterrence, and strategic use of protected environments. Predators still probe these defenses carefully. Spiders positioned near window frames exploit slow-moving individuals separated from the group. Certain parasitic flies and wasps locate shieldbugs through scent trails and deposit eggs upon them. Birds occasionally learn to tolerate the odor in exchange for concentrated protein during food-scarce periods. Yet the insects persist successfully because overwintering aggregations reduce individual exposure while maximizing the chance that enough adults survive until spring breeding begins again. Inside homes, the encounter becomes even more psychologically strange. A shieldbug discovered indoors rarely appears threatening in isolation. It moves with slow mechanical caution across curtains or ceilings, producing a faint clicking sound when colliding clumsily against lampshades or window glass. But repeated appearances alter perception quickly. One insect found near a windowsill suggests accident. Many appearing over consecutive days imply hidden abundance within the walls themselves. Human attention shifts toward vents, corners, and light fixtures with growing suspicion, because the insects emerge unpredictably from unseen spaces already occupied long before their presence became noticeable. The irony lies in how passive the takeover truly is. Shieldbugs are not feeding on timber, destroying structures, or hunting within the home. They seek stillness above all else. Warm, protected surfaces simply align perfectly with their biological requirements at the onset of winter. Yet the human mind responds strongly to visible accumulation. Buildings are psychologically associated with shelter, separation, and controlled boundaries between interior life and the external ecosystem. When dozens of insects gather openly upon those boundaries, the distinction weakens. The walls no longer feel entirely human. Outside, the insects continue covering sheltered surfaces in geometric clusters that mirror fallen leaves pressed against stone. Their coloration shifts subtly with species and age, blending into bark, ivy, weathered paint, and autumn vegetation. In fading afternoon light, the mass appears almost organic to the structure itself, as though the building has grown living scales in response to seasonal change. No aggressive movement occurs. No attack unfolds. The occupation succeeds through patience, environmental timing, and sheer persistence. As colder nights deepen across the landscape, the shieldbugs settle further into cracks and hidden cavities where temperatures remain stable enough to endure the long, dormant months ahead. The walls eventually appear empty again, but for a brief seasonal interval, human architecture becomes part of a larger ecological strategy, revealing how easily insects can reinterpret the structures of civilization as extensions of their own habitat. The ground seems to bloom before it appears alive. Beneath harsh tropical sunlight, along the roots of cotton plants, hibiscus shrubs, roadside weeds, and sun-warmed stone, clusters of red cotton bugs gather so densely that the surface itself changes color. Crimson bodies overlap across exposed soil and fallen seed pods in moving concentrations, vivid enough to resemble scattered flower petals from a distance. The effect is immediate and strangely theatrical. A person approaching the area may first register only color, a broad, irregular stain of red against dust and vegetation, before movement slowly emerges inside the mass. Hundreds of insects shift together in subtle waves, climbing over seed husks, basking against heated walls, or gathering beneath dry leaves where warmth accumulates close to the ground. None of them pursue, sting, or threaten directly, yet their numbers transform the encounter into something memorable because the aggregation itself becomes the dominant visual event. Unlike solitary insects that disappear easily into the background, red cotton bugs thrive through collective visibility. Their bright coloration functions as warning rather than camouflage, advertising chemical defenses that make them unpleasant to many predators. Birds, lizards, and small mammals quickly learn that the insects carry distasteful compounds absorbed from the seeds and plant tissues they consume. The bold red and black pattern operates as a biological declaration. Recognition is safer than attack. When multiplied across hundreds or thousands of individuals clustered together, the signal becomes almost impossible for predators to ignore. The entire gathering radiates visual confidence, occupying open spaces where more vulnerable insects would remain hidden. The environment surrounding these aggregations is usually dry, sunlit, and thermally intense. Heat rises visibly from bare soil, while seed pods split open beneath prolonged exposure to sunlight. For red cotton bugs, these conditions are not hostile but ideal. Like many true bugs, they depend heavily on external temperature to regulate metabolic activity. Warm surfaces accelerate digestion, movement, and reproductive behavior, allowing large groups to remain active throughout the hottest parts of the day when many predators retreat into shade. Clustering further enhances these thermal advantages. Bodies packed closely together retain localized warmth during cooler mornings and nights, stabilizing conditions within the aggregation while concentrating reproductive opportunities and feeding access around nutrient-rich plants. Cotton plants and related species form the ecological center of much of this activity. The bugs feed by piercing seeds and plant tissues with specialized mouthparts designed for extracting fluids. Entire seed heads become gathering points where insects of multiple life stages cluster simultaneously. Bright red juveniles lacking fully developed wings move among darker adults, creating shifting mosaics of color across stems and fallen pods. Their feeding can weaken cultivated crops significantly in agricultural regions, especially where populations expand unchecked during warm, dry seasons. Yet beyond their agricultural reputation lies a more complex ecological role tied to nutrient cycling, seed consumption, and predator-prey relationships within open scrublands and disturbed habitats. Predators remain present even within the apparent safety of the swarm. Assassin bugs stalk the edges of aggregations with slow, deliberate precision, using piercing mouthparts to immobilize prey larger than themselves. Spiders anchor webs near feeding sites where movement remains constant and predictable. Birds occasionally descend in brief testing raids, capturing insects before abruptly rejecting them after tasting the defensive chemicals. The aggregation survives partly because numbers dilute individual risk. A predator targeting one bug enters a shifting landscape of hundreds moving simultaneously across the same surface, making focused pursuit more difficult while ensuring enough individuals survive to sustain the population. To human observers, the psychological impact comes less from danger than from occupation. A single red cotton bug passing across a wall or leaf would barely interrupt attention. A dense congregation covering the base of a tree or spreading beneath outdoor fabric changes the emotional atmosphere entirely. The eye struggles to process so much repeated movement concentrated into one place. Surfaces associated with stillness begin appearing fluid. A patch of ground once ignored suddenly feels claimed by another form of organized life operating according to unfamiliar rules. This response reveals something important about scale and perception within human encounters with insects. People often evaluate threat based not purely on actual harm, but on abundance and visibility. Red cotton bugs exploit this unintentionally. Their biology encourages congregation around favorable microhabitats, where warmth, food, and reproductive opportunities overlap. The human mind interprets the resulting density as significance. The story becomes not what the insects are doing individually, but how many are doing it at once. The clusters themselves possess a quiet internal order. Individuals orient toward heat-retaining surfaces, crowd into protected crevices during cooler weather, and disperse slightly when temperatures become excessive. During mating periods, connected pairs move awkwardly through the mass, while juveniles gather beneath adults and plant debris where humidity remains marginally higher. Ants patrol the edges searching for weakened nymphs. Tiny parasitic wasps investigate egg clusters hidden beneath leaves. The aggregation operates as a temporary ecosystem layered atop the larger environment, supporting scavengers, predators, and microbial activity, all concentrated around the same resource-rich habitat. Under intense sunlight, the color becomes almost unreal. Thousands of polished red backs reflect heat, while black markings break the surface into repeating geometric patterns. The insects move with measured steadiness rather than urgency, feeding, mating, and repositioning continuously across the landscape. Their stillness compared to flying swarms makes the takeover feel strangely permanent. Nothing chases the observer away. Nothing attacks. The insects simply remain present in such concentration that human attention cannot fully reclaim the space from them. As evening approaches and temperatures begin falling, the mass contracts gradually towards stones, roots, and sheltered crevices where retained warmth lingers longest. The living carpet thins but does not disappear entirely. Even in reduced numbers, the impression remains powerful because the encounter was never about aggression. It was about visibility, abundance, and the unsettling realization that sheer concentration alone can transform harmless insects into a dominant presence across an entire landscape. Few insects receive a warmer human reception than a ladybug resting quietly on a fingertip or crawling slowly across a garden leaf. Their rounded bodies, bright coloration, and deliberate movements have long associated them with harmlessness, even good fortune, within human imagination. In fields and orchards, they are welcomed as predators of aphids and other soft-bodied pests capable of damaging crops and ornamental plants. A single ladybug moving through a rose bush suggests balance rather than invasion, a tiny carnivore patrolling leaves with patient efficiency. Yet the emotional tone shifts dramatically when autumn arrives and isolated encounters become aggregations. Dozens begin appearing along sunny walls. Then hundreds gather beneath rooflines, inside window frames, and across attic spaces until the familiar insect transforms from charming visitor into persistent occupant. Nothing about the ladybug itself becomes more dangerous. What changes is the scale of its presence and the realization that many individuals have interpreted the same human structure as ideal shelter at exactly the same time. The transition often begins subtly during the first cool afternoons of autumn. Ladybugs concentrate along exterior walls facing direct sunlight, especially those painted in pale colors capable of reflecting and storing warmth. The insects move slowly across siding and brickwork, pausing frequently near cracks, vents, and window seams, where tiny openings lead toward protected cavities inside the structure. Most belong to species adapted for overwintering in sheltered aggregations, entering dormant states that allow survival through prolonged cold. Houses, barns, and apartment buildings accidentally reproduce many of the thermal advantages these insects historically sought within cliff faces, rock crevices, and hollow trees. Sun-warmed walls stabilize temperature fluctuations, while dry interior spaces protect against rain, frost, and predation. To a ladybug navigating seasonal change, the building represents not human territory, but a remarkably successful artificial hibernation site. The ecological logic behind these gatherings reveals an extraordinary sensitivity to environmental cues. Ladybugs detect shortening daylight hours and dropping temperatures through hormonal changes that alter metabolism and behavior long before winter fully arrives. Feeding slows. Reproductive activity pauses. Energy reserves accumulated during warmer months become critical for surviving dormancy. Aggregating together improves those odds significantly. Dense groups reduce individual heat loss and water loss while increasing the likelihood of locating favorable shelter sites through chemical communication. Certain species release aggregation pheromones that attract additional individuals to suitable overwintering locations, gradually building concentrations large enough to dominate entire surfaces. Inside these gatherings, the insects remain surprisingly active despite their apparent stillness. Antennae probe neighboring bodies continuously, while legs adjust subtly to changing temperature and light. Some individuals reposition repeatedly across walls to maintain ideal thermal exposure during the day before retreating deeper into cracks as temperatures fall overnight. Their spotted wing covers conceal delicate folded flight wings beneath hardened protective shells, capable of reducing moisture loss during long dormant periods. The famous coloration, ranging from vivid red to orange, yellow, or black depending on species, functions partly as warning display. Like many brightly colored insects, ladybugs produce defensive alkaloid compounds unpleasant to predators. Birds quickly learn to associate the distinctive appearance with bitter taste, though spiders and certain parasitic insects still exploit aggregations whenever opportunity arises. Within agricultural ecosystems, ladybugs occupy an essential predatory role. Both adults and larvae consume enormous numbers of aphids, scale insects, and mites, helping regulate populations that would otherwise spread rapidly across crops and wild vegetation. A single larva moving across a leaf surface resembles a tiny armored reptile, more than the rounded adult form it will eventually become, stalking prey with relentless appetite. Their presence influences entire plant communities indirectly by controlling herbivorous insects, feeding on sap and tender growth. Yet this ecological importance becomes easy to forget once aggregations begin appearing inside homes, crawling slowly across curtains or gathering in corners near ceiling lights. Human reactions during these encounters reveal how strongly perception depends on density rather than actual threat. One ladybug resting on a windowsill feels gentle and familiar. 50 emerging unexpectedly from a light fixture or clustering along an interior wall create a completely different emotional response. The insects do not bite aggressively, damage structures, or move with alarming speed. Still, their abundance generates the impression of breached boundaries. Rooms designed for human comfort begin supporting visible insect life at scales normally associated with outdoor environments. The atmosphere changes quietly but unmistakably. Every windowsill becomes something to inspect. Every warm patch of sunlight across the wall might conceal more insects slowly emerging from hidden spaces. There is irony in this transformation, because the same biological traits that make ladybugs ecologically beneficial also make them successful occupants of human structures. Their sensitivity to temperature gradients, ability to exploit seasonal shelter, and tendency toward collective overwintering evolved long before houses existed. Modern buildings simply offer thermal opportunities too effective for the insects to ignore. Entire populations can accumulate within wall cavities, attic spaces, and roof gaps where temperatures remain stable enough to survive freezing weather outside. On warmer winter days, confused by temporary heat increases, individuals sometimes emerge prematurely into living spaces before returning again toward darkness and shelter. Outside, the aggregations create shifting patterns of color against stone and wood. Bright spotted bodies cluster tightly in corners where sunlight lingers longest, forming living mosaics that pulse gently with slow movement. Predators occasionally investigate the mass, but rarely remain long after tasting defensive chemicals released from disturbed individuals. The colony-like appearance carries none of the aggressive coordination seen in ants or wasps. Ladybugs do not organize socially in the same sense. Their gatherings emerge instead from shared environmental needs, drawing countless individuals toward the same narrow range of favorable conditions. As colder weather deepens, the insects settle into deeper dormancy, hidden behind walls and beneath rooflines where human activity continues only inches away. The building becomes a temporary winter refuge, supporting another layer of life within its structure. What began as a welcome garden companion evolves gradually into evidence that even the gentlest insects can reshape human perception once their numbers become impossible to ignore. The sound arrives before the insects become visible. At the edge of the grove, the air already vibrates with a dense metallic pulse rising and falling through the trees like electrical current moving across the landscape. Leaves tremble slightly beneath hidden movement, while the trunks themselves appear strangely decorated with pale hollow shells clinging to bark in countless numbers. A person stepping beneath the canopy enters not simply a habitat occupied by insects, but an environment temporarily transformed into the center of a biological emergence event unfolding at overwhelming scale. Cicadas do not attack, swarm aggressively, or pursue intruders. Yet few insect encounters alter the atmosphere of a place more completely. The sheer density of sound, bodies, discarded exoskeletons, and constant movement overhead changes the emotional texture of the forest itself. The ecosystem becomes impossible to experience separately from the insects dominating it. During major seasonal emergencies, especially among periodical cicada species, the numbers involved exceed ordinary human intuition. For years, sometimes more than a decade, juvenile cicadas remain underground, feeding quietly on fluids drawn from tree roots through specialized piercing mouthparts. Hidden beneath the soil, they pass through developmental stages insulated from weather extremes and many surface predators. Entire generations grow unseen beneath forests, orchards, suburban lawns and river valleys, synchronizing their maturation through environmental cues involving soil temperature and seasonal timing. Then, within a remarkably narrow window, the ground opens. At dusk during emergence nights, nymphs crawl upward from the earth in astonishing concentrations. Tree trunks, fence posts, walls, and tall grasses become vertical migration routes, crowded with slow climbing bodies, searching for stable surfaces where transformation can occur safely. The insects anchor themselves carefully before splitting open along the back. Pale, newly emerged adults pull free gradually from their old exoskeletons, unfolding delicate translucent wings that harden over the following hours. By morning, forests are covered with abandoned shells gripping bark and stone in silent evidence of the night's transformation. Every surface carries traces of emergence. The human observer walking through such a grove experiences not isolated encounters with insects, but the aftermath of a synchronized biological event involving millions of animals occupying the same landscape simultaneously. The sound intensifies as adults mature. Male cicadas produce calls using structures known as tymbals, ribbed membranes on the abdomen that buckle inward rapidly under muscular force before snapping back into shape. The repeated movement generates powerful vibrations amplified by hollow chambers within the body, allowing surprisingly small insects to create sound levels capable of dominating entire forests. In large aggregations, individual calls merge into layered acoustic fields, so dense they seem to alter the pressure of the air itself. Some species produce rising waves of synchronized sound, spreading from tree to tree like passing weather systems. Others create constant droning choruses that erase subtle background noise completely. Birdsong disappears beneath it. Wind through leaves becomes secondary. Human conversation grows difficult without raised voices. The encounter overwhelms not through physical threat, but through sensory occupation. Ecologically, this extraordinary abundance functions as a survival strategy known as predator satiation. Cicadas emerge in such massive numbers that predators cannot possibly consume them all. Birds gorge themselves continuously. Squirrels, raccoons, reptiles, amphibians, and even fish feeding beneath overhanging branches exploit the sudden flood of protein. Predatory insects patrol the canopy in unusual densities, while spiders build enormous webs between branches crowded with prey. Yet despite the feeding frenzy, enough cicadas survive because the sheer volume of available insects exceeds predator demand. The strategy transforms the ecosystem temporarily. Forest nutrient cycles accelerate as dead insects decompose into the soil. Animal reproductive success can improve following heavy emergence years due to the sudden abundance of food. Entire food webs pulse outward from the event. The human experience inside this phenomenon carries a peculiar mix of awe and disorientation. The insects themselves remain awkward flyers, colliding occasionally with branches, trunks, and even passing humans as they navigate crowded airspace. Their large bodies and vibrating wings create a constant rustling overhead, while individuals crawl slowly across bark and vegetation searching for mates. Shed exoskeletons crunch faintly underfoot along trails where emergence density was highest. The smell of warm sap, soil, and decaying plant matter thickens beneath the summer heat, while sunlight flashes repeatedly through moving wings high in the canopy. What makes the encounter so psychologically powerful is that the forest ceases feeling stable. Cicadas alter the sensory identity of the environment at every level simultaneously. Sound becomes nearly architectural, pressing against the body from all directions. Visual clutter accumulates across trunks and branches through thousands of shells and insects layered together. Even the timing of daily activity changes. Many species intensify their choruses during the hottest hours of the afternoon when elevated temperatures improve muscular efficiency and sound production. The grove itself seems governed by cicada biology rather than ordinary seasonal rhythm. There is irony in how defenseless the insects actually are, despite their overwhelming presence. Cicadas possess no venom, no sting, and little capacity for escape once captured. Their survival depends almost entirely on timing, synchronization, and abundance. The swarm is not coordinated socially like ants or bees. No colony directs the emergence. Instead, millions of independent insects arrive at adulthood together, because evolution discovered that simultaneous appearance could overpower predation more effectively than concealment ever could. As evening settles across the grove, the chorus shifts again, rising and falling in waves through darkening branches, while newly emerged adults continue climbing upward from the soil below. The entire landscape hums with biological urgency. A person standing within it may feel briefly reduced to observer rather than participant, surrounded by evidence that forests can still surrender themselves completely to ancient rhythms operating far beyond human schedules or control. For a few extraordinary weeks, the trees belong to the cicadas, and every sound, surface and movement in the ecosystem reflects their presence. The hovering begins before the structure itself comes fully into view. Beneath the shaded roof of a wooden shelter or along the edge of a weathered deck warmed by afternoon sun, large dark shapes move through the air with abrupt bursts of acceleration, followed by impossible stillness. Carpenter bees patrol these spaces with an intensity that immediately changes how humans move within them. A doorway that moments earlier seemed inviting becomes a threshold crossed cautiously. A bench beneath a pergola remains empty despite the shade, because several insects now occupy the air directly in front of it, hovering face level with startling confidence. Their bodies are heavy and muscular, larger than many familiar bees, with polished black abdomens that reflect flashes of blue or violet under strong light. Unlike the nervous wandering of flies or the organized feeding patterns of honeybees, carpenter bees appear deeply invested in specific sections of space itself. The encounter feels territorial, not because the insects attack aggressively, but because they dominate the immediate air around the structures humans also prefer to inhabit. The reason lies inside the wood. Carpenter bees are among the few bee species capable of excavating nesting tunnels directly into timber, using powerful mandibles designed to chew through dry plant fibers. Railings, fences, roof beams, pergolas, and untreated outdoor furniture all provide ideal nesting material because they combine shelter from rain with stable exposure to sunlight and warmth. To the insects, these human-built structures resemble expanded versions of the dead branches and hollow trunks they originally exploited in natural ecosystems. Smooth boards become nesting cliffs. Support beams become breeding habitat. Entire patios and gazebos transform into layered territories where multiple individuals establish nests within close proximity. The hovering behavior that unsettles humans so effectively is most often performed by males. Male carpenter bees lack stingers entirely, yet they defend nesting territories with extraordinary persistence. They patrol back and forth through open-air corridors around entrances, darting rapidly toward movement before stopping inches away in prolonged hovering confrontations. Their large eyes track passing animals continuously, while rapid wing beats hold them motionless with remarkable precision. From a human perspective, the behavior feels confrontational because the bees repeatedly approach the face and upper body, maintaining direct spatial pressure without making physical contact. Evolution shaped this strategy against rival males competing for access to nesting females and favorable breeding sites. Human proximity simply activates the same territorial response. Females behave very differently. While far less visible during these aerial patrols, they perform the labor-intensive work of nest excavation and brood care hidden within the timber itself. Using mandibles reinforced with metals such as zinc and manganese, female carpenter bees chew circular entrance holes into wood surfaces before tunneling inward along the grain. Inside these galleries, they construct a sequence of chambers separated by partitions of chewed wood pulp. Each chamber receives a carefully prepared mass of pollen and nectar gathered from flowering plants, along with a single egg that will develop in isolation within the protected tunnel. The entire nesting system represents a delicate balance between structural shelter, thermal stability, and access to surrounding floral resources. Heat plays a critical role throughout this process. Carpenter bees are powerful thermoregulators compared to many smaller insects. Dense thoracic muscles generate substantial internal warmth during flight, allowing activity during cooler mornings when many pollinators remain inactive. Sunlit wooden structures enhance these advantages further by storing and radiating heat across nesting surfaces. A shaded deck edge warmed internally by retained afternoon sunlight may remain suitable for nesting and territorial behavior long after surrounding air temperatures begin falling. The insects orient themselves repeatedly toward these microclimates, choosing structural positions that maximize energy efficiency while protecting developing larvae from moisture and fungal growth. The ecological significance of carpenter bees extends far beyond the tension they create around human spaces. They are highly effective pollinators, especially for flowers requiring strong vibration to release pollen. During feeding, some species perform buzz pollination by vibrating flight muscles intensely against blossoms, shaking pollen loose from tightly enclosed anthers inaccessible to weaker insects. Tomatoes, blueberries, and numerous wild plants benefit from this behavior. Their large size also allows them to travel considerable distances between feeding sites, transferring pollen across fragmented habitats where smaller pollinators might remain localized. Predators monitor these busy structures carefully. Woodpeckers sometimes tear into infested beams, searching for larvae hidden inside tunnels. Spiders anchor webs near floral feeding sites frequented by foraging adults. Parasitic bees infiltrate unattended nests to lay eggs within pollen chambers prepared by carpenter bee females, allowing their own offspring to consume stored resources intended for another species. Even the timber itself responds slowly over years as repeated nesting weakens exposed surfaces, creating cavities later used by other insects, small reptiles, and cavity nesting animals. Yet for humans, the defining experience remains spatial. Carpenter bees alter how certain outdoor places feel simply through their presence in the air. A narrow porch entrance suddenly requires negotiation with hovering insects that refuse to yield immediate passage. Their flight sounds deepen the effect. Unlike the high, thin whine of smaller bees, carpenter bees produce a resonant, low-frequency buzz generated by powerful wing muscles moving substantial body mass. The sound vibrates through wooden beams and enclosed spaces, making the structures themselves seem occupied from within. There is an almost architectural quality to the encounter. Humans construct decks, fences, and shelters for rest, shade, and comfort. Carpenter bees interpret the same structures through entirely different biological priorities: nesting opportunities, thermal stability, and reproductive territory. Neither species intentionally seeks conflict, yet both value the same spaces intensely during warm seasons. The result is a temporary overlap of purpose where ownership feels uncertain. The bench remains empty, not because the bees have attacked, but because they have filled the surrounding air so completely with movement and presence that the structure no longer feels entirely human. As evening cools the wood and sunlight withdraws from the beams, the patrol flights begin slowing. Males settle near nesting sites, while females disappear deeper into tunnels where developing brood rests behind carefully sealed partitions. The hovering pressure fades gradually from the air. But the encounter leaves behind a lingering awareness that even the quietest structures built by humans can become part of a larger ecological landscape shaped by insects with ancient instincts and remarkably different ideas about what a shelter is meant to be.